Hi, I'm Alex Weintz with the Oklahoma City-based public affairs firm Amber Integrated, and you're watching or listening to Quarantine Corner. Quarantine Corner is our effort to bring people useful, timely, uh, engaging information and content during the COVID-19 pandemic. We know there are a lot of people that are cooped up in their houses and home offices just like us, basically wanting to know what people in their community are doing at this time as we all grapple with this crisis together. We're talking to healthcare leaders about their efforts to contain the crisis. We're talking to business and education leaders about innovative strategies that they're using to get through this time. And we're just talking to people about what they're doing personally in their lives to deal with it. I'm really happy today to have on our guest, Erin Barnes. Erin is a principal with Epic Charter Schools. She is a parent of Epic Charter students, and she's also a founding member of the group Parents for Public Charters. Obviously, online learning is incredibly important and relevant today, more so than ever, as the schools have shut in Oklahoma and people are all relegated to distance learning. Erin, can you talk to us about how you got involved in Epic Charter Schools and why online learning as an educational model appealed to you?
Sure. So I was in my full internship at NSU and assigned to a district. And, we hadn't really taught social studies in about 3 months, and science was kind of being taught once a week or every other week. And I hated school growing up. So I got into education to change it. And it seemed like all this district was focusing on was math and reading. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I would have quit in 6th grade if that's all I was able to focus on, It turns out I really love history. And so if somebody had designed math or reading lessons around history, it would have been a game changer. But because of that, I thought, man, I just paid a lot of money to get this bachelor's degree in education. I don't know that I'm going to be able to use it. And a friend of mine said, well, have you heard of Epic? And I hadn't. So I called, and I got to meet up with David Cheney. I saw the passion in his eyes and the why in his eyes. He created this school around his own son, who was a Gen 1 Epic student as well. And I was sold. I mean, personalized education online, but with a face-to-face teacher. I just didn't see how that was going to be a negative impact on education. So I jumped in.
For the uninitiated, tell us what is Epic and what makes it unique in the world of public school education.
So anybody that's listening in Oklahoma has probably heard some sort of press around us, but nobody really does a whole lot of research to find out what we are. And what we are is a charter, which there's a whole class of people who think about charters one way. It is online, and so that's setting us apart as well, but it's also one-on-one blended learning. And so students do have an online platform that they work through content, but they have a one-on-one teacher that visits them based on their schedule. My husband is a teacher in this platform, and he sees his kids 3 days a week, which is far from what, never online only learning. And it is what you need it to be. And so what is Epic is kind of a crazy broad question, because it's such an individualized platform that the nuances of it are insane. My daughter is a dyslexic child. And so coming up with a way to teach her reading that doesn't also kill her, it's just different for her than it is for for another kid. And so we try to come up with lesson plans that are specific to the actual individual needs of each student.
So it's online learning. There's an element of customization.
Yes, very customized.
And can you sort of proceed through a lesson plan at the speed at sort of the natural speed that you're learning things rather than today we learn X, tomorrow we learn Y.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that part is pretty awesome as well. I mean, so I was a student who was held back in fourth grade. Um, One of the statistics out there, and I really kind of just needed a couple of extra months, a little more help. I didn't need the entire fourth grade again. Matter of fact, the entire fourth grade year, I was in a lot of trouble because I had gone through most of that stuff before. So if I had been awarded the ability to just spend a few more months on the skills that I was lacking versus spending an entire year in the same grade level again, it, who knows? Who knows? So we're here for those kids who just need a little more time. And we're here for those kids who are ready to do X and Y today, and maybe Z tomorrow versus X today, Y tomorrow, Z next week. Matter of fact, my husband's got a 15-year-old senior right now who will graduate in the top 10% of his class. He's already been accepted to OU next year, and can't drive a car. So we're here for that kid as well as the kid who needs a few more months. One of my favorite stories to tell, we graduated our valedictorian one year, got a full ride to West Point, and in the same graduating class, we had a kid who was 16 months into his sentence at the state penitentiary. We're here for every kid in between there.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's great. And so obviously one of the reasons that we're talking to you and talking about Epic today is most schools have been shut down. Every brick and mortar school has been shut down. Schools are adopting remote learning, which in many cases seems to be we're dropping off some books and asking you to read them. But Epic obviously is sort of in the catbird seat where your whole business model is focused around remote learning. So where does that leave you all? Have you had to make any changes? What changes have you had to make? And sort of how is Epic dealing with this pandemic and this new world of remote learning and education?
Sure. We are in a very unique place of we were already doing that. And so for many of our families, they had a 3-week spring break forced on them by the State Department because they were ready to just keep going and get this school year done. Really, the only thing that changes is that face-to-face component. We can't go hang out at Starbucks with our students anymore, or sit in their living room working math problems. So that part changes. But as far as the rest of it goes, our teachers are already geared up to do Zoom and Google Meet and Hangouts, just like you and I are doing now. So it doesn't change a whole lot. But what we have done is, you'll see all over Facebook. I mean, we've got 1,100 educators at Epic who have literally reached their hands out through Facebook and other social platforms to say, hey, I'm here for you. Let me help you. And you see a lot of bridges being built between us and brick and mortar educators because they weren't necessarily geared up for it. And they were kind of forced, their hand, twisted into this distance learning thing. And so the bridge that we're able to provide here is huge. And I just hope that it's seen as a bridge.
Sure. So Epic's actually reaching out to traditional public schools that are sort of, I can imagine, just kind of lost, trying to figure out where to go here, and offering resources and training, and in some cases even like lesson plans, right?
Yeah. So I'm one of the co-authors of a statewide initiative that we put together for helping entire districts kind of get on board with this. And some of them we've had just telephone conversations with to see, they wanted to know if they were on the right track. And others have been this 2-hour free professional development that we've put together where we walk them through the etiquette, best practices, and the resources. Some of them realized throughout that they were kind of more on track than they thought they were. And others are kind of like, oh, I didn't realize the weight of this. And so you've got the full spectrum of district I don't know, realization of what it is that we've been doing and what it is that they have or can do. It's been pretty awesome. We've had several districts reach out to us. We've even got professional development we're working out with the Department of Corrections right now, who is kind of forced also into distance learning, but they've got less to work with than even, the brick and mortar world. So it's pretty awesome seeing.
So you're working with the Department of Corrections. I assume they have programs that help people get their GEDs and things like that. Is that kind of what you're referencing?
That's correct.
Huh. I didn't know that. That's fascinating, and that's a great example of how something that was designed to do one thing can do something sort of in a completely different bucket that is wonderful and productive. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're not only helping our public schools, but also the prison system get people's lives back on track.
Yeah.
What we've talked to a lot of people who believe that at least some parts of or some of the changes that we've seen in reaction to this COVID-19 pandemic may actually be permanent. So we hear from people who think that telemedicine is here to stay, that people are going to get used to calling in their doctors and asking for prescriptions for an ear infection or something instead of going to see their doctors, or that they've just signed up for Amazon Prime. Why would they go back to sort of brick and mortar shopping, at least in the same volume as they were doing before? Do you think this is like a big moment for virtual schooling or blended education, as is your model, or do you think it's going to be sort of a fleeting thing?
No, so it's hard to see the future, obviously, but I think that there are going to be a lot of districts that look at this and think, wow, we can kind of use this component or that component a lot more than we were doing before. I mean, everybody's seen the meme or heard the joke out there that meeting could have been an email. And, this is kind of a way we don't have to take the 20-minute drive to the office, sit in the 2-hour meeting, and then have the 20-minute drive home. I think that you'll find that a lot of businesses kind of, and schools kind of wondered if this would be the step they could take. And now that they're forced into it, they'll see there was money to be saved. There were things that could have been done virtually. And now we've got this platform. We can really develop our skills around it. I don't know how far the pendulum swings, but I do think that there's a component of this that is the new normal.
Sure. And your students now, they've all elected to be EPIC students. No one's assigned to be an EPIC student. So there are something like 30,000 families that have chosen to leave and to do this remote learning model. What are the kind of profiles for some of these students that you see at EPIC who have chosen online learning?
I mean, like I said before, West Point gymnast and prison inmate and everything in between. I mean, we've got a little kiddo in my region. I'm a principal here now, who was just elected Best Actress or just nominated Best Actress in some sort of a film festival. She was is one of the actors in the new movie Full Out 2. We've got models, we've got teen moms, we've got kids that are supporting their entire family, so they need to work full time. I mean, we've got bullied kids, we've got everything. All of the kids found some reason that the traditional approach wasn't working for them. For me, even at 4 years old, we started my oldest in a brick and mortar pre-K program, and her teacher was asking me if I'd ever thought about putting her on medication for her attention. And I just thought, she's 4, And so we brought her home because we weren't ready for that conversation. And she's 13 now and still not on medication, but able to do all of the standards that the state of Oklahoma says she needs to do, we're able to do them, and she's excelling at it. She's got a podcast that teachers across the nation listen to, and they're telling her, I never saw it like that before. Thank you for your insight. Because she's able to express herself in this way, and I'm checking off standards that she's able to hit by producing this podcast. It's their way of learning.
Right. No, that's fantastic. And, I think, there are very few industries where someone writing with a pencil on loose leaf, if they really thought about it, would have a reason to not use a computer and the internet. And I'm not sure that education is one of them where it would somehow be better to be using 19th century technology than the tools that we have at our disposal. So,
and there are so many districts that just didn't know how far along they were. It wasn't like they thought it was this huge mounting task in front of them. And then when we peeled back the layers through this 2-hour PD, they realized, oh, we were kind of closer than we thought. We just need to jump the jump. So I mean, there are a lot of people that think of it as this giant daunting task, but it's not necessarily that. They just don't know what they don't know until we get into it.
Sure. At one point, the State Department of Education closed, or I would say not closed, but basically put a pause on all education in Oklahoma, including remote learning.
Yeah.
Were the EPIC parents and teachers surprised that they would be included in that? The justification basically seemed to be, well, if everyone can't learn, then no one can learn.
Right. And there were definitely families that felt that way. There were some, I'm sure, that were like, woohoo, a longer spring break or, whatever. But for the most part, we saw on our social platforms, people saying, why can't you grade my paper? Why can't you give me a call on fractions? Yeah, I don't understand. This isn't brick and mortar. I'm not having to go to you. But yeah, we put a pause on it because we didn't want to break the law or some sort of a mandate, but it seemed a little crazy to us that we had to put our kids on pause.
Sure. Well, I'm glad it's back on track now, and not just that, but that you're providing some of these other resources and expertise to traditional public schools as they get up and running with their own remote learning and in some cases online learning.
Well, and if they don't know that they've got the resources, they can always check in with this Epic Ed website that Epic has built. It is an online resource of lessons. Every standard that the State Department has said a student needs to know, we have at least one lesson to go with that. And it's something that it was kind of just an Epic platform that we've created for ourselves, but we've decided that, if you don't know how to do this, or if you still need more resources, we're sharing it out with everybody now. I mean, it's not an in-house secret. Epic Ed Online is something anybody can go to, even traditional homeschool families that may be at a loss for how to teach something. It's open for everybody now.
That's great. And I bet you are seeing a lot of people who are maybe not traditional homeschool families, but have become homeschool families that are looking for resources like that. So I'm glad that they're out there.
Yeah.
Well, Erin, I know you're a busy educator and mom, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but is there anything else that people should know about EPIC or online education before I let you go get back to your job?
Well, before you go, I do want to put a plug out for Parents for Public Charters. It's kind of a conglomeration that several different charter schools had come together, and there are parents and there are different educators within the group who have kind of come together and said, hey, there's some misinformation about what's out there and what people think about charters. And it's all charters, not just an EPIC ordeal, but go in and check that out, because we are trying to educate the public as well as educate our legislators, so that there are, there just seems to be a lot of misinformation, and we don't want laws created around misinformation. And so it's a place that we can all come together to get the truth about what a charter is and what charters are doing in Oklahoma.
Fantastic. Yes, that's parentsforpubliccharters.com. Great place to get information on Oklahoma's charter schools and a way to, it makes it easy to reach out to your legislator and ask them to support all public charter schools in Oklahoma. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, Erin.
Thanks, Alex.
Well, thank you for being with us today, and good luck. And certainly we wish you success, not just with EPIC, but with your outreach and your training of teachers and administrators at other public schools. I know they can all use the additional help now as we kind of work together as a community to grapple with this crisis.
Thank you.